everyone, welcome back to my second YouTube video. I apologize for not uploading as fast. I finally got a microphone, so I hope you can notice that the quality of the audio is a lot better. But yeah, anyways, today I'm drawing Spider-Man. This is not a spoiler, by the way. This is from a comic. I think it's like Miles Morales versus Spider-Man. I found the comic in a store and I immediately felt in love with the energy of this sketch, so I really wanted to replicate this in my style. And if you want to draw along, you can totally do it. But anyways, today we're talking about why you should copy other artists. Now this sounds incredibly controversial at first, but let me explain why it's literally probably the best way to learn as a beginner. Now I'm talking about beginners. This is actually how I learned to draw as a beginner. At the beginning of 2020, when the quarantine started and all this coronavirus started, I actually started drawing like constantly, and I became addicted to art. And since I became addicted, I became addicted to a lot of artists, and I began to replicate a lot of their art because I wanted to be as good as them. And this turned out to be a really good thing for me. Now before I explain all the benefits that you get from this, I really want to mention that you should absolutely credit the artists. Of course, I think everyone knows this, but if everyone knows this, then I don't know why there's still so many people who just post their drawings without giving credit. It's really annoying, and it's a little frustrating, as an artist, because we put a lot of work in this, drawings. So yes, if you could credit them, that would be totally cool. And I should also mention that some artists are not okay with people copying their art, even if they give them credit. And so yeah, you should be careful with who you copy, and most of the time it's better just not to post their drawings. It's just for practice. So what do you get from this? First of all, it's a lot better, it's a lot easier to copy a drawing rather than a real reference, like a real picture. And why is this? It's because our face is composed by geometrical shapes. You can see that our nose, has a lot of shapes. It's like a triangle, and then inside the triangle it has like 3 circles, etc. So all these shapes are really hard to identify in the real picture, but when you look at drawings, you can see that these shapes have already been identified by another artist. So when you try to replicate their drawing, you'll see that they already did the job. They already did the hard part, and that was identifying the shapes. And not only are you gonna be able to draw, identify shapes, you're gonna get really good at shading. Because when you try to shade a picture without looking at another drawing, you'll see that it's really hard to decide where the shadows are placed. So in a drawing you can clearly see where the artist put the shadows, but in the picture it might look completely different. So I'm gonna give some examples, like some of my drawings. This is how I decided where to put the shadows, but maybe there were still other shadows in other areas, but I decided not to draw them because of whatever reason, right? Maybe because it looks better, etc. And this is because we're experienced. But when you're a beginner, you will have absolutely no idea where to put the shadows. So yes, shadows are crucial when it comes to copying other artists. Also, there's like 1,000 ways to draw shadows. You can look at so many styles. Some styles are realistic, some other styles look like comic. I think a lot of people have told me that my style is sort of like a comic style. So yeah, you will learn how to shade. That is like 100% guaranteed. You will also learn how to draw proportions. So this is sort of like the shapes, but when you're looking at another drawing, it's a lot easier to compare your drawing with their drawing. So when you try to fix the proportions, it's gonna be a lot easier. And yes, so you're gonna learn how to copy shapes, how to fix your proportions, how to shade, and last but not least, how to do your line work. There's so many ways to do line work, and I think a lot of people don't know what that means. But that's basically all these little lines that you see. It's basically the outline. And you know, at first beginners are gonna try to, if they look at a real picture, it's gonna be really hard to, you know, judge how the lines look. If you look at our face, if we look at our nose, there's like edges in our nose, but they're really hard to define as a beginner. But when you're more experienced, you know how to draw these lines. So this is what you're gonna see when you copy another artist. After you're done copying, you know, all these artists, there's something's gonna happen. You're gonna memorize a lot of things. You're gonna memorize the way some artists draw. Eventually, after copying so many artists, you're gonna start memorizing, you know, the way they work. So when you're working by yourself with a real reference, a real picture, you can actually do work by yourself. And the best thing is gonna happen to you, and that is that you're gonna find your own style. Because maybe you want to draw the eyes the way an artist does, but you also want to draw noses the way another artist does. So you're gonna start mixing a lot of these styles, and this is actually what happened to me. I was heavily influenced by a lot of artists, and this is literally how I found my style. So yes, it's gonna be very beneficial. I also want to show you guys some of my favorite artists, like the ones I mentioned at the beginning. At the very beginning of quarantine, I was actually very obsessed with realism artists. So the best one for me, the best artist in that category, is Milo Art, in my opinion. His drawings literally look like pictures. So my dream was to, you know, get to that level. I don't think I'm at that level yet, like nowhere near that at all. But you know, I like to consider that my drawings are sort of realistic. So yeah, I think that the factor of realism came from him, because I learned a lot of realism techniques from him. And then after that, I became obsessed with another artist, and that is Milo Art, which yeah, probably all of you know him, but his style is not really realistic. It actually is, but the way he shades is really different. And this is when I started, you know, really practicing another technique of shading. So then my style, you know, really started to get defined, because shading is a big part of everyone's style. So yeah, that's where I, you know, really got inspired, and I think it's very evident. But then lastly, I was really inspired by another artist named Anais Gonzalez. She's a Spanish artist, and I loved how she did eyes. So I really wanted to replicate that feeling, that energy, the way, you know, how dramatic her eyes look. So I'm really happy at where I am, but I have to mention that it took me a very long time, and I really want to emphasize that, because a lot of people think that it's an overnight thing, that you will get good immediately. But no, it really took me a long time to finally find my style. And I think a lot of you really have to be patient and just enjoy the process, because you're gonna learn so many styles, and finally, after, you know, trying out all of them, you can finally stay with one, and you can develop it, and you can define it, and it's a very fun process. So you really just have to be in the moment, because when you finally stay with one style, you're gonna miss drawing in other styles. So yeah, you have to keep that in mind. And anyways, that is the end of the video. I hope I was able to make sense, and I hope you were able to get something from this. I am currently teaching people how to draw on my Patreon, so if you're interested in tutorials and videos, you can head over to my Patreon to get access to my weekly tutorials and some other videos that I'm doing over there. And also you can send me your work there if you want me to give you feedback. But yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, you can subscribe, and yeah, I hope you guys have a good day.